It's live, you can see it. Here, you want to pass me that bag?
No, you're fine. Oh, you probably have to refresh your face. There you go.
All right, welcome everyone. We are about to get started in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's 11:27. We will start at 11:30. Just checking, making sure everything is working. What do you got planned for today, Brandon?
Man, this, and then I probably got to go free some nails for
Yeah.
make sure that all the extra things that the food bank that we
Yeah.
started on Monday. I got to freeze those.
Yeah.
So I'll do some stuff to some tomatoes on Sunday afternoon. For the weekend's sheet.
Yes. All right, well, adventure, like if the mics are plugged, I shouldn't.
It's not yet.
No, it's not plugged yet, but she said everything's working. Should only hear them. Yes. I haven't plugged it in yet. I'm about to plug in the mic.
Thank you. Everyone else.
Yes, thank you, Well Adventure. She said, okay. Yes, thank you for checking in. Thank you for letting us know. Yes, we're about to get started in 2 minutes. In 1 minute, it's 11:29. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the microphone now. Testing. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Hello, everybody. Hello. Okay, thank you so much for confirming. Well Adventures. Okay, I'm going to pass this one on to Brandon. That's going to be yours to keep. Like, let me swallow my gum. I forgot about that.
Holding this makes me nervous.
Yeah, it's a little, but you got it.
That's all good.
Yes. Hold on. Okay, shirt everywhere. It is 11:30. We are good to go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What Anna Said podcast. We're so excited to be here today. We have a very special guest with us on here, and we're so thankful that he agreed to do this episode with us today. We're here today to share his story, talk about his journey thus far. But before we get started, we'd like to say thank you to Dosa Morris here in Hearst for providing this space so that we could have this meaningful dialogue with our very special guest. I'd like to introduce everybody to Mr. Brandon Stafford. Yeah, Brandon, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here. It should be a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I just appreciate you guys giving me the time to share my story and the journey that I've been through and just how we can impact the community together.
Absolutely. Brandon, I'm so excited to be here with you today. Every time I see you, you're on the go. Like you're from here to there. And that's literally my favorite kind of people because I need to keep up. And I love people who encourages me to keep up, which tells me also that there must be a story. And I love hearing, we enjoy listening to people's story. This is why it's so important to have this podcast so that when you come on, everybody can hear your story and you can put a voice to a face. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Which brings me to the first question of today. Can you briefly share your background and what you originally set out to do in your career?
I can definitely share. I don't know that it'll be brief though.
Take your time.
Right. I was born in Hawaii, which is why I think I always gravitate towards.
I know that.
I think it's why I gravitate towards, towards the Islander community. But just why there's such a, I love the water. The ocean calls to me. It's probably my favorite place in the whole world. But my dad was in the Navy, and so that's why he was stationed in Honolulu. So I was born in Hawaii, lived there for a few years, and then just as a kid, I traveled the entire country. Spent time in Connecticut, Nebraska, Washington, Florida, before we finally moved to Texas. And I think that experience in and of itself, I didn't really stay in one place too long. I always tell people, like, by the time I was a freshman in high school, I'd been to 9 different schools. So it required me to have to make friends, get along. But the hard part is as a part of that journey, I don't have a whole long list of lifelong friends. And so long, meaningful relationships has always been kind of difficult for me. But to be able to meet people, to interact with people, it's never something that's been difficult for me. And so, when it was in 5th grade, when we moved to Texas, my parents got divorced shortly after that when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. That journey was hard to finish high school. And then because of the difficulty there, I wanted to get as far away from home as possible. So I graduated from Texas Tech. So I went up there for 4 years. Spent about 6 years in Lubbock. And that was kind of the beginning of my wilderness journey. I was saved in high school. I found Christ that freshman, sophomore year through a friend that invited me to one of their church events. But I didn't really build a relationship with Christ. So when I went to college, partied, drinking, drugs, all that kinds of things. Sexual immorality became a long part of my story. I went off after tech. I moved up to Tennessee for a couple years. And I was working on a degree in counseling. So I found an internship here back in Texas. Tennessee was cool, but it wasn't Texas. Even though I had traveled the country as a kid, I spent the majority of my time before I went to Tennessee in Texas. So there was a pride that came along with it. There was that there's nothing quite like Texas. So when I did an internship, I found a place in Texas, in Garland, to do some counseling. So I was counseling at-risk youth at a nonprofit organization. When I was going to tech, I was a physical therapy major. I was trying to work between the drugs and just the life that I was living then. I had to change majors. I changed it to psychology. That's what led me to go to Tennessee to work on a degree in counseling. And then the counseling wasn't quite working out because of a problem in Tennessee. I wasn't able to advance in that career. So I was trying to figure out what I could do to kind of figure out Zach's mom. We had figured out that she was pregnant. And I didn't have health insurance and these things. So I figured out what could I do to kind of advance my career or do something to get us the health insurance. And so I was researching it, and I decided to go back to UTA for my athletic training degree, which is funny because it's essentially what physical therapy would have been with longer hours and less pay. But God kind of pointed me back in that direction because it was a mixture of being able to mix science and sports, but also continuing to help people. And so I went back to UTA, graduated from there. And then a couple of years after graduation, I got the job at Birdville High School. And that story is kind of cool in of itself, but I won't dive too much into that right now. But, that began the career of an athletic trainer. And obviously since then I've kind of moved into the next phase, but that's kind of how the athletic training aspect of my life came to be. So that's the long,
Yeah.
circular,
Yeah.
arduous
Right.
We can definitely
path.
see why that's not a brief story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I ended up. And then a few years ago, I feel like God was just calling me to do a little bit more ministry, being with the youth, and kind of where Eva had her desire to spend more time. God was putting into us that working 70 to 80 hours a week was difficult, to try to be able to manage ministry, home life, work life. And so God was kind of pouring into my heart to kind of start this business. So that way I'd have more time for ministry, I'd have more time for the family. And that's kind of the impetus behind that, where that kind of got started. And now we're here. And now we're here. We're able to do a little bit more ministry. We're able to do the business. I'm able to spend more time with family. It's not easy, but there's a lot of reward that goes along with it too.
That is, thank you so much for sharing that story. How I love that you were born in Hawaii. So now that makes so much sense. Thank you, Brandon. You already went. I'm sorry, what did you say? Something?
Oh no, I'll say after.
You've already answered this second question, which was what what drew you into becoming an athlete or coach, a trainer working with young people. I heard you say that you enjoyed loving, helping others. But was there in that season of training and working with young people, was there anything that stood out to you that was your favorite thing with working with the youth?
I want to go back kind of the second question. Like, I think the impetus for me to everything that I've kind of done is kind of God's kind of created me to be a servant. Like, I grew up in the restaurant industry. When I was 14, I started bussing tables. I worked in the kitchen when I was 15, 16 years old, and then I started waiting tables and bartending. And there was always something where I wanted to help people, where I wanted to serve. Like, that's just who I am. And even training in the restaurant industry, I always had a hard time with people that couldn't serve well. Like, I never understood it. Like, why do you want to meet people's needs? Why do you not want to help them have a great experience here? And some of it's just because they weren't good at multitasking or reprioritizing the needs of people, but it's also because they didn't care. They didn't care to see, like, hey, this person's glass is empty, go fill it. Like, don't ask them, just understand, like, they want more water. Like, so serving even in athletic training was the same way of, hey, these people have a problem, they want to get better back on the field. So serve them, figure out what you can do to help them to the best of your ability. And so that season meant a lot to me, because I got to help in a different type of aspect that I had never helped before. It was literally helping kids become some of the best that they could be. When it's serving in our youth group, what did it mean? Well, it meant for them, teaching them and trying to serve them in a way that taught them how to serve, and how to serve well, what that looked like, how to serve with excellence. And there was a demand sometimes for the youth that maybe was too much. People might have thought it was too much, that it was like, serve well, like, not just serve just to serve, not just serve because you're told to, not just serve because you feel like you have to, or that's because what the event tells you to do, but because that's part of who you are, and to do it with excellence. And sometimes that would lead me to frustration. Especially when we did some of, like, the past fundraisers that we would do. The pastor always laughs at me because I would get frustrated with what was going on. And some of it's because I'd have to guide people or the youth into, how do you lead? How do you serve? How do you serve? Like, there should just be this drawing to serve. And I know it's not innate in everybody. And that sometimes is hard. But that, I think, is the biggest impact for me with the youth, was in serving them, in the fact that I didn't want them to go through the same trials that I went through. When I went to the wilderness journey of how isolated, how depressed, how the drugs and the sexual immorality didn't lead to what I would thought it would, what I'd hoped it would, right? Like, and so serving them just to be better, to not have to travel that road that I traveled, was important for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Brandon, and just taking us through your life story. And like we mentioned, it wasn't brief at all. Just like that, you mentioned that you were born in Hawaii, and I feel like That's why you are just like us, like one of us, especially having the heart to serve. That's one thing that I've always noticed since meeting Brandon at the church that we serve together at Central Baptist Church. I've always seen that you've had that inside of you, the heart to serve and giving back and to the community and going through all the things that you went through since a child to where you are now. I did want to touch up on that part where you mentioned because your dad was in the Navy.
Correct.
So you were moving around a lot. And I feel like as for me and my sisters, for my family, when you said you went to 9 different schools and having to make new friends, but you couldn't have lifelong friends because of moving so much, I could identify with that so much just because it was the same with us. We were moving here, going to this island, coming to the States, just moving around. And it was always hard to make lifelong friends. As soon as you make a friend, it's time to move again.
Yeah.
So I could definitely feel how you felt during that time and moving, and then also trying to just discover why am I here? Because you mentioned that when you guys moved here to Texas and then going through the separation of your parents, how that must have been, the weight of that, as a ninth, 10th grader. And because all your life you grew up knowing this. And then now here I am, like in the middle of my childhood life, and this huge change has happened. And just knowing that that must have been a very deep and heavy um, responsibility to take on during that
Oh,
time.
that story in of itself goes way deeper. I mean, my dad and I, because he was on and off in the Navy, 6 months on, 6 months off, we never really had a great relationship,
Yeah.
which is something if you've known me for my story is something that I've tried to develop with Zach. Is like I always promise myself, and uh, I didn't want to be my dad. Um, Not to say that he didn't try, not to say that
Yeah.
he was serving our country. He was doing the best that he could. He did what he thought he had to do, and praise God that there's not. And I don't want to say that I feel like there's parts of me that have become my dad, and that's a great thing too, because he was a good man. Um, but the hard part too was in between that divorce. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't. We didn't. My dad was Mormon, and that was hard because with the impetus behind my parents' divorce was my dad all of a sudden just decided to go back to the Mormon church, and so that was a whole shock to my family in and of itself. My dad started tithing. My dad quit drinking. My dad quit smoking cold turkey. Both my parents were alcoholics. And so just that change in that dynamic of what happened in our household during that time. My dad made me go to seminary for the Mormon church every morning at like 5 a.m. my freshman year at high school. I resented him for it. And he told me that if I didn't do it, that I wouldn't get to play select soccer, which I had known all my life. And again, like I can look back and I mean I harbored a lot of resentment and hate towards my dad. Then I can look back and understand what he was trying to do in that moment. Obviously, as a parent now, I can look back and say I wish he had done it differently, but wanting to instill those values and that importance of how God had developed him in his life and what he was doing in him in that minute. I mean, for my dad to stop drinking and smoking cigarettes, like that was a testament to what God could do. And then when I came back to God, one of the first things that I did was start tithing. And that was something that my parents argued about when my dad started going back. My mom didn't think we could afford it. My mom didn't see the importance of it. And it was one of the first things that I did. And it was one of the first things that I said, if my dad believed that God would take care of us in the midst, then I needed to have that same kind of faith that, look, it's to say, like, I was waiting tables and bartending and I was raising a son. I couldn't afford to tithe by the natural world, by what everybody would say. But it was the first thing that I did. And I saw God bless that obedience, that even when I didn't think rent was going to get paid, that next time I needed rent to be made, I'd be able to make the money and be like, "Oh, thank you, God. Like you are fulfilling your promises." But that whole freshman sophomore year was hard. I broke out in hives. Like I would be going to the grocery store and my face would swell up because of the stress that I was going under, because this whole change. I'm a freshman in high school. Not only is the coursework I'm going through hard, but my parents are getting divorced. My home life sucks. I'm trying to become this new person. This is the third school or the fourth or fifth school in 5 years since I've lived here that I've had to make new friends, that I'm trying to fit in. My parents didn't grow up with money, so I'm middle class at best, but like a struggling middle class family. Like my parents didn't put weight in material things, like, so, everybody's wearing their jabots and all their brand name things, and I'm a kid just trying to get by, and trying to fit in, and yet getting thrown into to this mix of all these other changes that were going on. It was a hard season for me, that I know God was doing something in that mix, but at the same time too, it was very difficult when it was going on. So I don't know if that was a question attached to that, or if that was just me rambling about about the story. But I mean, it's part of who I am. It's part of what shaped me. And again, there was a hard part in, like, knowing that my dad and I didn't have a good relationship, and that always carried through. He passed away a couple of years ago, and there was always a piece of me that I wish we had had a better relationship. But there was a part of me too that's just the cards that I was handed.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon, for just opening up and sharing that with us. Anna, did you have something?
Yes, yes.
But yes, thank you so much, Brandon, for first of all doing this, and then also just being so honest about your story. I really love hearing it, and I truly love having people on this platform, because although we've known Brandon for a few years, all of these things are new to me. And so, I mean, starting with where you were born, that was new to us just right off the bat. And just to provide context for our listeners, we attend church. Kim and I, we attend the same church with Brandon, and so we get to work alongside each other in the ministry today. And so to hear his testimony and just his upbringing and childhood and his life, a lot of those dots are connecting for me right now, because seeing you today and just hearing about your story, a lot of things are making sense. Just listening to you talk about your childhood, one thing that I see is that the only constant in your life has been change. And so, changing schools, changing your group of friends, maybe even as a child, like new school, new me, changing, this is my identity now, and all those things, while also craving the structure that you wanted, craving that relationship, whether you knew it at that time as a child, but that longing inside of you to have that relationship with your father. And that's such a tricky place to be, because it's not like he left you. He's serving our country, and he's protecting. And so even you speak about that relationship, and sharing your grievances, but doing it in such a respectful way. Also, I feel that coming across, because honoring the man that he was. Like you said, he was a good man, and I love that you speak about the things that you did take away from him, like his faithful obedience and the tithing and things like that you saw as a kid and understood how important it was, and that you carried that into your life. And even now, you said how those things, they carry on across your life even now as an adult, which makes sense, because our parents are such significant figures in our life, and they really do build our paradigm, as a kid. And so seeing those things and knowing the changes that you wanted to make as a father yourself, even though you had Zach at a time where you said, I didn't even have health insurance, and I had to get with it quick. I had to grow up and get my act together, and pursue something that would provide for my family, but also something that I want to do. And something I find amazing is in hearing your story, is because your parents divorced in high school, and this is such a formidable time for a young person. And you even sharing how, from all that mess, I just want to go far away. And even though doing all of that and getting away from it, you still went into counseling. Like, you still wanted to work with the youth. And that's just something that, seeing your entire story, I see that has always been a part of you, that longing, whether you want to or not, you find yourself in these spaces. You find yourself helping out in some kind of capacity with, nonprofits, or within the community, even at church. And so that's a beautiful thing to see. And I love your relentless pursuit towards that calling, that tugging, that feeling, whatever it was, that you continue to pursue that. Even when you hit a dead end, it might have had a different title, but it was the same thing. So thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, again, just serving, like, there's so much behind us as servants. Like, I mean, there's the biblical aspect of it too, but then there's just the personal reward of it too. And that's, and I think probably in the beginning it was more of the personal reward aspect of it than it was the biblical aspect of it. But now I get to pair both.
And in the beginning, I had said, every time I see you, you're going left to right. You're always on the move. And now that you're sharing your full story, which thank you for taking us through that whole journey. I'm like, now I completely understand, especially coming from someone who had divorced parents. I too also come from a family of divorce. And then you said you were pursuing psychology and counseling, which is one of the things I would love to get into in my future. But I love that because that means you knew exactly what you're going through, which you can provide the answers and help to other children in the youth or whoever you were meeting. Because, like you said, you develop the heart to serve. Like I love what you said earlier. When you don't see people serve, you get frustrated.
Yeah, I love that.
And we have been learning that leadership does not come naturally to some people. We literally have to teach some people to how to have leadership and how to serve. So thank you for even understanding that. Thank you for taking your pain from pain to purpose and pursuing people's hearts and always on the go. So thank you for doing that. I was curious because in the seasons where things begin or ends for you, because like you went through a lot.
Yes.
How does those impacts get you through mentally? How do you get yourself through it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question to ask. I mean, obviously every season's different. Um, but I'd say most recently, in the past, it was probably just that's what I had to do. That's what you do as a survivor, right? Like that's just. I mean, change was natural. Like it's okay. This is what it is. Like keep trucking on. Like, but all within my own power and self. I mean, obviously, as I've gotten more rooted and grounded in the Word, um, that the spiritualness has come into it, and God's formed me and changed me to be able to just understand the trials are just a part of life. Like you're not going to avoid them no matter how much you try to, no matter how much money you have, no matter how good of a leader you are, no matter what job title you hold, you're going to fall into it. You're going to fall into trials and tribulation. And there's always the Rocky saying, you get knocked down 7, you get up 8. That's a great worldly perspective to have, right? Like that's what you try to teach your kids, man. It's not how you're gonna lose. You're gonna, trying to teach Timothy this in baseball, like you're gonna lose. You're gonna strike out at the plate. It's okay, but you can't sit in that. Like and so a couple of verses in my life that have really started to take hold was Jeremiah 29:11, where God says, I know, he's about to bring destruction upon them, but he says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for a hope and a future, plans for good and not for evil. And Romans 5:3-5 are some of my favorite verses that say, we glory in our trials because those trials produce perseverance. That perseverance produces character, and that character produces hope. And that hope does not put us to shame because the love of Christ has been poured into our heart through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. And so there's a purpose behind what we're going through, and that's to endure. And that endurance is to produce a character, and that character is one who does endure. And what does that mean? Well, that next trial that comes is going to be harder. It's going to be longer. It's going to be more formidable. Why? Because you can look back and say, I've already done this. God's already brought me through it, not because I came through it, but because God's brought me through it, because God's given me the ability to endure. Whatever he's done, like, right? Like what did when I brought food to the church from the food pantry on Monday, in the midst of the trials that we're going through in the business and personally, it was like, well, at least I know I'll have food provided. Exactly. No matter what's going to happen right now, like there's a contact there for me to understand we're going to get fed. And so it gives you this hope that the trial can be endured. And so spiritually, it's kind of that, it's just an understanding like, yeah, this does suck. Yeah. This sucks. This is hard. And it's not what I choose, but there's a purpose behind it, and I've tried as long as I've held on to this verse. so many people, cancer, people that go through cancer, people that lose children, and it's I know it's not comforting in the moment to hear it, but they're always asking why. And God's given us the why. Like, to me, like that's what that set of verses is. He's given us the why. And so you can use that story to say, look what I've been through. And it's not to say what I've done, but what God's brought me through. And why has he brought me through it? So I have a hope that the next trial that comes, I can endure it again. And then if I can endure it, I can point you to the one who's got me to endure it as well. And that's really the impact of it is like, man, God has carried me through so much. Like, it's not because I'm good. It's not because he loves me more than anybody else. It's just that he's continued to carry me through as we've built our faith, as we've continued to dive into his word, as we've continued to serve him. He's been faithful to his promises to say, I will carry you through. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
You answered a lot of these questions. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with you, Mr. Brandon. All right.
Yeah,
Because
the format's great.
no, I love it. I love it. Thank you. I
was
love
reading
it
through and I was
because
like,
that was
yeah.
the next question that you have already answered, which was, did you ever feel uncertain or lost about what direction to take next? You provided us these scriptures that
And that's
you,
right now for me.
yes,
Like, yeah, like I read that, and the first thing I thought of is it's us right now. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much change in what's going on, and I don't know what to do. Whether it's with the ministry that we're trying to begin, whether it's with the business isn't doing what I want it to do, and it's what is God trying to lead us, and it's hard. Like, there's a vision, but there's not a lot of clarity right now. There's a hope for what I want the business to do, but is it what God wants the business to do? It's what I thought he wanted it to do, but then why is he taking so long?
Yeah.
Because I sit there and go back to Romans 5. Like, he's calling me to endure, and he's calling me to trust in him, maybe deeper or stronger, or become more dependent on him. And it's been a difficult season the last 6 months since I left my job, or however we want to word that. And it's been full of ups and downs. And there was a question that was in there before, was like, when I left the job, there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of hope, a lot of go get them. And there was a lot of momentum when the business when I first left it. And I don't want to say it's going backwards, but I've had to take a couple hosts down from whatever technical issues, selling businesses. And then all of a sudden it's not going the direction that I wanted it to. And so it's like, is God really what is God doing? And so I don't remember where I was even going with that point of the story, but that's the ups and the downs of where it is. It's like, no, I got to remain faithful that this is what he's doing. That he's put us here, and that even in the midst of the trials, we'll continue to truck along. And if he makes the path clear in 6 months that it's not,
Right.
then we'll deal with it. But
Yeah.
I
Don't
lost my
worry.
train of
Yeah.
thought somewhere in there.
No worries about answering the questions or sticking to them. We're here to have a conversation. Yeah. So we're having a good time. But there were so many things that you just talked about that I wanted to touch on. Hopefully I remember. There. But one of the things like you were mentioning was also faith, having faith. It's not a denial of what's happening. Like you said, this sucks, and that's okay to say. Like sometimes, yeah, it sucks. The process sucks. What I'm going through this season sucks. And so faith is not a denial of that, but like you said, it's that hope, that confidence that God will carry us through, that he will see us through, that maybe I made all this mess, but God's going to change it and make it into the message that he needs it to be. And so as you were explaining, like right now you're in that season, you're in that season of, okay, I'm going this way and it's not working. I'm going this way, it's not working. And the frustration that you keep bringing up, which I love, because that's so important. I feel like as leaders, they say you can't change what you tolerate. And so that frustration right there is exactly where you need to be, because I think about, in leadership, or even when you're working out and you're building a new muscle, you as a trainer should know this more than me, let me tell you right now. But that process of tearing so that you can build a new muscle. Correct me, please don't, feel free to correct me on any of this, but it's the same thing. You know, the characteristics that you need, you don't build that unless you are put in a position that stretches your current capabilities. Then you're able to build that new character or develop into who you need to be for the next level that you're walking into. And I feel like a lot of that is happening for you right now. And for me, it's great to see because first, I'm not in it. But number two, also because I truly believe everything that you've been doing and are doing, and I believe in the purpose that I don't think it's a coincidence that our paths have crossed. I don't think, and just seeing everything that you're currently doing and want to do and pursuing, I know that there is greatness there. I know that there's so much, and you're the key person that was put into that role to bring about a certain change. And because of the things that you've been through, you really do understand people at a level that we may not understand, you know, or someone else may not understand, because as a leader, you can't lead someone to somewhere you've never been. But because you know the way and you've been there, you can come back and say, "Follow me. I went that way. Come this way." That leads to a dead end. And so that's just for me. It's a really I'm so grateful to be a part of a witness to your journey and your process. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I hear you every time you talk about frustration. I'm like, yeah, that's why you're that guy. You know, when you're frustrated, you're somewhere and someone's not filling up a cup, an empty cup, and you're thinking, why even ask? Serve them. Those are things that you see, you know, and that's what makes you so special. That's what your gift, because you see those things, and a regular person won't understand that, but you see that need, and your desire is to fill it, even if it's your job to serve in that place you're at or not. But that's your desire. So yeah.
And I think I mean, this is personal, whatever, but I think that's kind of the problem with the church is we see a need and we're expecting somebody else to fill it. And it's like in, I think maybe heard your dad kind of say it too, is like, you don't have to go through the church to fill the need.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
right. Like, and I think sometimes we wait for that. But at the same time too, like, you know, not every need is a spiritual need. Not every need, and you know, and there might be a spiritualness behind it, but going back to what I wanted to go back to kind of what you said, the stripping away to build what's new, right? And that's kind of where we're at. Like, what is God trying to get rid of in our lives? What is he trying to strip away from us? What are we holding on to? And that's kind of where, you know, kind of where we're at, you know. And that's the season of leaving Birdville. There was a good question in there too of I remember exactly what it was, but you know, was it a redirection? Was there a loss or something? And it's a little bit of both. Like, I mean, I've had to grieve the loss. I mean, I've lost relationships with people. I've lost purpose. I've lost, you know, I've lost a community in it. And you know, as much as I played a role in it, it wasn't really of my own doing. It wasn't in my time frame. It wasn't in the way that I would have chosen it or wanted it. You know, but Timothy and I were on the way to a basketball game a couple weeks ago, and it was one of the last games that they had played in the season. And I was listening to the radio, and they brought up Isaiah 43:18 that says, "Don't pay attention to things of the past. Behold, I'm doing something new, and can you not see it?" And it really kind of it stirred in me, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is like there is a need to strip away the past and to not hold on to it. How much of it is kind of the key question that I'm going through right now. How much of the past am I holding on to, or how much is he requiring me to get rid of? Like I thought about, do I burn all the shirts and the t-shirts and everything? Like, but what about the money that I've made in retirement? Where does that go? What does that have to do with it? What about the relationships that I once had? Like, am I not allowed to hold on to those? Like, because there's if every season has its purpose, then there's still purpose in those relationships too. So it's hard to bridge that gap of saying, okay, no, like I can hold on to the relationships, but I can't hold on to the money. I can hold on to the t-shirts, but I can't hold on to the friendship. Like, what exactly is he stripping away? And then what is he replacing it with? What is better? What is new? What is the regenerated? What is the um what is the faith or the spiritual aspect that's coming in return for it? Because right, that's what he's doing, is he's replacing the old man with the new man. And so, it is a little bit of a loss and a little bit of a redirection. There is a stripping away of that old, and so there has been a grieving process that's been tough. Part of it has been seeing Timothy, and how he's had to grieve through the loss and of himself and who he was in the mix of all that too. And as a parent, seeing that taken away from him, there's grief associated with that. There's failure associated with that. But then the redirection of knowing like God has a bigger purpose. God is gonna do more. And it's teaching him like there's been times where he's been like, like they're dumb or whatever. Like those people, they're just jerks and for what they did. And it's not that I don't disagree with you, but at the same time too, that doesn't mean that we don't let go of that and put that to the side and still walk in faith and say he's still doing something new and better. But the difficulty of it, it's easy to say, it's easy to have this, but I can't sit here and lie to you and say like that the season hasn't been difficult. Like that me and Eva have been through it. Like, I sat here a couple weeks ago just mulling over my own pity party of saying, why me right now, God? Like, who am I? Like, you aren't being faithful to me, and then sitting here saying, yes, you are. Like, shut up, Brandon. Quit being that way. But and Eva is trying to be like, well, what are you doing about it? What do you do? I just need time. Like, God will show it to me. God will get me out of it. Like, right now, I just need to be in it. Sometimes you just got to be in it for a minute and understand, like, the soreness will go away. When you work out and that stripping, it's going to go away. But right now, it hurts to sit down. It hurts to stand up. And I don't want to stand up.
Yes, exactly.
So, like, let me lay in bed for a little while longer. Like, so.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Brandon. You took us through
Everywhere.
a lot right there. And I just wanted to touch on just your story and you talking about, whenever you were in that field with in that field of being a trainer, and then when that was taken and feeling like you lost your sense of identity and losing even like friends that you had during that season, and going through these things, it just takes me back to the potter and the clay, and you're being formed and you're being shaped and all these things. And you keep wondering, like, why me, God? That you, on the way to a basketball game, like you mentioned with TC, and you hear on the radio and it literally talks, and talks about Isaiah, and you had to take that moment to really to mourn that life because that was all you knew. That was when you went to Tennessee and then you had Zach and you knew I had to make a choice and find something quick to provide for my son and for my family now. And you went into this field of being a trainer. And after some time and some years of being in this field, then all of a sudden everything is stripped away. It takes me back to that book, Formed Underwater, Four Truths That Shape Identity, Purpose, and really asking those questions. Who am I? Because that's the most important question, is to really sit down with yourself and ask, who am I apart from doing all these things, apart from this job title, apart from this position? Who am I apart from being a dad and all of these things, a husband? Who am I? And right now I feel like you're in that season, Brandon, and just, like you said, like, it sucks. Like, God, this sucks. Why me? Like, come on, God. Like, I've been faithful. I know your word. I've been sticking and doing all these things. And I thought that this is the season I'm supposed to go in. But God, why does it feel like everything's still, or it's not going the way that I was hoping it was going to go? And that's when God's like, to be still and know that he is God, to leave everything in our Father's hand, because that's the big man. He's going to take care of us. Okay. Just like our Father here on this earth that, that love us, how much more can our Heavenly Father love and do for us for his name's sake? So thank you so much for just sharing that, Brandon. I can feel the depth and the weight of everything that you have been sharing with us.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Brandon, I'm just so happy you're here because you have been speaking our language. Every time you talk, I'm like, yes. I'm like screaming amen in my head.
Yeah.
Being a trainer, it took me back to a moment with my son. And he had a sprained ankle. It wasn't that bad, but he had a sprained ankle. And he did try to be dramatic about this. He wanted to lay down. He wanted to not beyond it, right? But being an adult, and also me and my husband being in athletics growing up, we knew that he needed to add pressure to get that muscle moving again. And he was shocked to hear that. He was like, "What? I need to stand up on my broken ankle?" We're like, "It's not broken. You can walk. You can move." But I love that because it just reminds me just about your life is that you continue, no matter how hurt or how much painful it was for you, you continue to add pressure.
Yeah.
And we get to see that diamond that you're becoming today. You spoke about the rebuilding. You've already covered the setback and the redirection. Okay, so let me redirect one of our questions here, because I'm curious to know is what did these seasons teach you about yourself the most?
That's one of the questions like that I still think
Yeah.
I'm going through. Like I don't. I mean, again, I think it's that character that I can't endure. I mean, I look back and I endured the difficulty of my parents' divorce. I endured the wilderness season of my own calamity of drugs and alcohol and sexual immorality and just and almost dying. I tell people all the time I belong in prison for the rest of my life for the things that I've done, and I don't say that um, whatever um, and it's sad, but God had a bigger purpose for me, and it's to share that story, and it's to share that redemption, and it's to share that He can use anybody, and so I endured that. And, part of the story that I haven't told, when Zach was 3 years old, his mom and I finally split up, and I literally again lost everything. Like I didn't have a car, didn't have a place to live, I lost my job. Everything got taken away. Like God took it all away, and it was a tough 6 8 months to a year. But that's when he called me back to himself. That's when I felt the call of the Holy Spirit saying, you aren't who I created you to be. You are not acting in the manner that you grew up. Like you know better than this. Like the way that you treat people now, the way that the things that you're seeking after isn't who I called you to be. Look back at your high school years. Look at the kindness look at how you serve, look at how you love, look at all these things you used to do, and now look at you. Why are you here? I'm calling you back to me to be who I've called you back. And so there's almost kind of like this full circle moment for me. But the story recently is very similar of like God saying, who am I shaping you to be? Um, and that's tough. It's there's a piece of me that's I'm the helper, I'm the servant, I'm the one that can get along with people, I'm the one that can build bridges, I'm the one that can bring people together. And that's kind of that community focus that the business has, that the outreach director position that we've recently taken has. And watching God kind of work through it all has been pretty cool. I mean, the stories that I can see, that I can tell, that probably wouldn't make sense trying to tell it in this time frame. But just the food pantry guy that gave me the food the other day to be able to help 12 families in the area, to give to two nonprofit organizations, to feed the homeless, to make money for a nonprofit organization. That wasn't me. That was just a relationship that I happened to have because some way or another, because I just happened to go to a community event. This person gave me a contact to this person. And then when I talked to this person, they happened to be in the same school, in the same theater department as my son. And so we get to have conversation. And then 2 days later, he's like, hey, I've got some extra food for you. Can you use it? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, but I guess I'll find out. Like, right. And again, it wasn't me or anything I did. I've just tried to be that person that God's called me to be. And that's just being kind, being loving, being obedient, serving Him in that capacity, and just trying to find ways that God can make an impact. And it's not me, it's just I'm friendly. I can get along with people. I can go out and meet people. I can have conversations with people. Um, I might not be good at holding on that lifelong relationship with you, but that's something else that God is trying to get me to grow into. Is can I and I think that's a big aspect of what He's doing. Can I form some meaningful relationships now, because that's what it's going to take, I think, for us to impact the community. Is it's, yeah, you're good at being superficial friends, and I say superficial like there's not depth, but there can be some depth to it. But it's like, hey, we're friends, we're cool, like, hey, I can call you when I need you, or hey, you can come hang out. But it's getting to know you, it's getting to know what your purpose is getting to know what impact you want to have, and then being able to bring that impact to the community together. So it's not just me saying, hey, can you do this for me? It's what role do you want to play in it? And so there's an aspect of that that I have to get better at. It's asking those deeper questions. It's asking those questions of, what are you doing that's being successful? What are you doing that's not working? What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to see? And then how can we do what God's doing in me and through me? How can we work together for everybody to get impact through what they're doing and what God's calling them in their story? And that's a reshaping, and that's tough, because I'm not good at that. That's not been ever. That's that stripping away of me being that old person of, okay, yeah, you can make friends, you can meet people, and then just forget about them in a year because they're no longer there. But now I'm putting people around you that you're stuck with them. They're not going anywhere. Like, and if you want it to build, like, you have to not think that you're just stuck with them, right? Jokingly, but that you have to be able to give them value and bring value to them.
I know you mentioned, Brandon, about, building that relationship now, but on a more um, in depth with those relationships. And I could see how that could be a bit of a struggle because, as you mentioned, you moved around a lot and it was hard to make those lifelong friends. But now here you are, becoming the man that God created you to be, pursuing all these things and the direction that God is changing you and shaping you, and he's putting you in a position like, okay, Brandon, now is the time to make those lifelong friends. Now is the time to be, more in depth with these relationships so that I can show you what I can do through everything that you're doing. And Brandon, I just want to say, as you guys know, we served together with Brandon at Central Baptist Church. And from when we first came to where we are today and seeing the man that you are becoming, I always like to say, like Anna, you are not behind, you are becoming. And that's something that I see in you, Brandon, is you're continuing to become exactly who God called you to be set apart, and to, like earlier, leaders, true leaders, they're frustrated because they see something that can be done better, or in a better way. And just hearing your heart to serve and your frustration, and now God's putting you to make these lifelong relationships and to be intentional with them. And because we're not leaving, Brandon, we're over here. Brandon's like, oh, here they are again, but I just wanted to tell you, Brandon, that I am truly so excited, and I can see God moving in your life, Brandon. And I'm so glad to be part of this new season that you are in, that God is continuing to shape you and create you and make you all that you are, the champion that you are, because we are champions, Brandon. So thank you for being here with us today, taking the time coming. Brandon brought his son today because his son's out from school today, so he's joining us. He's having breakfast or lunch right over there with my dad and my brothers. So just thank you, Brandon, for taking the time and coming out.
I appreciate it. And I'm sure he was a little mad that he didn't ask for his burger plain and dry. So but glad that Neela probably helped him out over there. So, but no, I mean, I appreciate, like, yeah, it is, the becoming part is the hard part, and not taking that feeling like I am behind, like I am trying to play catch up. Like, me and your dad kind of talked about that story. Like, I've got food dropped off. Like, we've got a food pantry ready to go. Like, where are you at, Brandon? Like, why haven't you built it already? Like, what are you doing? Like, but again, just trying to decipher the clarity of, okay, we had a vision for a food truck ministry. The pastor kind of has a vision for a food pantry. And so what is it that God is really stirring in us? Is it a mobile food pantry with a food truck ministry? Is it, am I putting too much of my desires and wants into it? And so the becoming part is hard. Like, it's a hard place to be, but there's a rewarding to it too. You can't, it's it's like, yeah, you can say that God will make a way, but how much better is it to look back and say, look at the way that you just made, look at what I just traveled through. And that's what the hope is that in a year we get to look back and be like, look at what you've done, God. Like, look at, like, because it wasn't me, because if it was me, I know me, I'd have done screwed it up by now. And I probably am, right? Like, I read something the other day. You can do the right thing, or you can do the wrong thing with the right intention. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. Like, right, like what, but sometimes it's a decision has to be made, and that's the hard part. Is like, you've sought God, you've tried to be intentional about it, you've tried to make the best decision, but Moses hit the rock with his staff. Was he making like? I know that wasn't exactly what God said, but was God really clear about like? Yeah, I mean, he was, but what's wrong with me hitting the rock? God, like, it wasn't that big of a deal, was it? But he said, no, it was a big deal. Like, you didn't listen to what I said, and it's like, man. So trying to be still and hear exactly what God's saying, but at the same time too wanting to be like, no, like, I want to go out and grab it too, right? Like, I don't want to just sit here and be still. Like, there's, your dad will say, Brandon, you're all about to do, like, you're all about to go do. But there's a part where we have to go do. We can't just sit still. You can't just be lazy and think that God's going to lay it all in our lap. But there's a tough line to, like, where is that line? And right. And that's kind of the season right now, just trying to figure that out. Exciting, but cumbersome.
Yeah. Definitely scary and exciting at the same time. You shared earlier about when that season ended as a trainer, and that season being such a, like Kim mentioned earlier, your complete identity at that time, or so you planned for that being, your entire life, investing so much into it, your entire family having a part even in that. And so, like you said at the beginning, it was woo, like, I'm free, the world is my oyster, like everything, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And then for the pressure and the weight of reality to set in, and you just sharing about the refinement process, and just it brought to mind the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly, and the stages that it goes through in order to become a butterfly and to grow its wings, and just thinking about those things and that transformation taking place in the cocoon. Like, you right now, because we're on this platform, of course you're saying the things, that the private conversations that you're having, or thoughts that you're having, we're saying that out loud here. And I thank you for doing that and being vulnerable, because people need to hear that. And I always say, not just now, not just those that are on the live, but those in the future, those in the coming years that will see this and identify with, man, I know exactly what he's talking about. I know exactly what that feels like. I'm there right now. And you feel like the rug's been pulled from under you, and you're left trying to catch your breath, let alone trying to carry on the responsibilities that you had before the rug was pulled out from under you. And so for you to be doing that out loud, like, you're the process, you're letting us see this process raw as it is, and you're welcoming us into that conversation that's taking place. Like you said, some of these questions you were like, that's right now. I don't have an answer, because that season's happening right now. And something I love so much about when we go through our trials and tribulations in life is seeing, like you said, God's hand is in there. You said, I don't know what's going to happen. I know God's got me. And like that's easier said than done. But I love that God introduces up, the multifaceted characters of who he is. And he introduces us. He uses those hardships in our life to introduce himself to us in that way, so that we can really taste and see and experience him in a personal way as your provider. Hey, like you mentioned earlier, hey, that rent that you're worried about, it's right there. And that just reminds me of a story long time ago, in the younger years of our marriage. And I remember my husband had suffered an injury, so he was out of work for some time. And I was like, you know what, let me just do DoorDash or something right now in the meantime, just to whatever it is that we can make right now while you're recovering. And I remember one time rent was due, and I remember just talking to God, like, what's the point? What should I just turn on and go home? This is too much for me. Like, I know you're here with me. Is there another way to do this better? And I remember just having that honest conversation with God. And I remember just being so real and just letting God, that's what I love, just speaking to him as my father, letting him know, this is how I feel right now, and I need you. And I remember in the moment, in the same breath I used to complain, talking to God, a huge truck, like moving truck, cut me off while I'm complaining to God, and I'm like, oh, here we go, and and then the truck cut me off, and in the back is a huge banner tied to the truck. Don't even know where the truck. Never saw this truck again, and the banner in big red letters said, "Trust in God." And it was like God had to get my attention because I was beginning to doubt. I was beginning to lose hope. I was beginning to complain. I was beginning to, wallow in my misery. And God said, nope, we're not. No, we're not going to do that. And it just reminds me of the way that we speak to our own children. When they when they get in that place, and you gotta sometimes grab them by the shoulders, like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. We live in a world where we're the confines of time and space and bills and responsibilities, but not God. And so that was something that God had to shake me up, like, hey, you're gonna be okay. And so I hear that as you talk about this frustration and and all the things, like, what now? Where, left, right, turn, move, be still. And knowing you, I know that that is tough to be still. That is tough to be still, because being still is an acknowledgement to God. I trust in you. I'm surrendering, God. You got it. I don't need to, not by my effort, but yours. And there were so many times in my life where God had to take me through some things so that I could understand that without Him, apart from Him, this would have never been done. That it truly is not my effort. And so I see God continuing to show up for you in these ways in your life, and starting from the very beginning. And you share a lot about how before you lived your life, like, your life didn't matter, and you were, in substance abuse, just all the things, partying, and some things that, this is not a confessional, so we're not going to specify, but to see God's the transformation, just like Paul on his way to Damascus, and that moment of transformation where, he was blinded, and but just seeing that in your life, and you having that moment. And so now living your life this way, just in the unknown, and the only thing that's known is that God is going to see you through. And I love that. And thank you for sharing that here, because the most exciting thing is when we get to come back and share the other side of the story. Yeah.
Hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
Right.
I There's so much that you have learned over the years, and I'm sure a lot of things that you had to unlearn through the process as well. I love hearing the pattern of, no matter how much you felt like you were being torn down, that you got up every single time. Because sometimes when we go through things, people isolate themselves, they set themselves apart, but you continue on getting up. And it's funny because you're like, relationship, I'm embracing relationship, community. That's a pattern that comes after you talk about the hardships of it. And I just love to seeing that your transformation, like Anna said, which brings me into, as Brandon was speaking about his businesses. I wanted to ask you, what has been exciting or challenging about stepping into something new?
Well, the challenging is doing a business that I have absolutely no background in. And I mean, I've never seen myself as an entrepreneur. I mean, and so God's shaping me in that way. And so there's definitely some challenges, that there's so many aspects of the business that I have no idea what I'm doing. I know I'm probably not doing right, or I'm not doing well. But I have a team behind me, and I'm continually reminded that I need to rely on them more. Um, and so that's something that God's trying to teach me, is like that I don't have to do it all by myself. Again, that there is community around me, that He's given me, especially in the business, a team around me that if I'm not utilizing them, it's my own fault. Like, and I have to come to terms, like, I'm not doing it on my own. But it's hard as a man. It's hard as someone who has, I want to say, as I've built my life, like, I mean, like, as a man, we feel like we're the one in control. Like, and I know that God is it, but like, it's hard. It's hard for me to be like, no, like, I'll just let my team do that. No, let my team be like, no, like, or I need to, like, ask them, like, no, should I have already learned this by now? Shouldn't I know this by now? Shouldn't I have overcome this by now? There's that. So there's those multiple different feelings that come along with why I don't trust my team, or why I'm not leaning on my team. But that goes back to the whole community aspect of even within the church. Like, hey, we've got we've got to impact our community together. It's not just the Lions Club, it's not just the Kasitati Foundation, it's not just the church, it's not just Brandon's businesses. We're all in it together. Like, and so to trust that the community is going to come together when it matters, when it's important, when it's necessary, that those things. But not even when it's necessary, it's just being in the day to day of like, hey, we're in this together. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, we've run out of money. Yeah, we don't know where the next event's coming from or what it's going to look like or how we're going to build it, but what can we do to shape it together? And the cool thing about the businesses is that I have businesses that have been able to provide. We go back to the different businesses that help support the Sprout into Spring. The Z-Bar Cattle Company and the butcher shop that gave us the jalapeno beef sausage. Phenomenal. It just just for them to step out and they're in Keller, they're not anywhere closer. Are they really going to get much business from what they did? No, but they wanted to make an impact still. The Parlor Donuts, they're a faith-based business, and their heart to serve and to impact the community was awesome. And again, they're in Southlake. Like they're probably not going to gain a whole lot from what we're doing. And then of course, Babylon Coffee Roasters. I don't know if you girls have ever been there, right? Like, I mean, just her heart to serve and her story in and of itself. But again, it's that we should be building the community together. It's that it's not just my relationship with the butcher shop. It's not just my relationship with the donut shop. It's what relationship can the Kasitati Foundation or the Lions Club have with them as well, for the impact to grow in its effectiveness. It's and the same thing with Elizabeth with Paint by Design, right? Like, and so many other relationships that we're building is we don't have to do it just through the church. We don't have to do it just as a church. We don't have to do it just as Little B's indoor billboards, but it's together in community. And that's the exciting thing, is that there's so much more power when we do it together, because that's the kingdom. That's that dominion that that I hear your dad talk about. Is like, and that's kind of where the impetus behind the billboards came together, is like, how can we promote Christ-centered businesses to the forefront, to push them to the forefront to where their businesses are having success, because then when they have money, it's going to be used for kingdom impact. And so that's the whole reason, and that's what I'm trying to seek with the businesses is this business, Christian business alignment of like, hey, like, am I gonna grow your business by 20% just by advertising? Probably not. But what impact are you gonna have in my business that I can impact with the community? And then in turn, the community will see your name, and then how do they impact your business in the future? Well, it might not be immediate, it might not be in 3 months, it might not be in 6 months, but if you're a faith-based business, you believe that harvest is going to come. And that's the hard part of even about the season that I'm in, like, right, the harvest is coming. When? I don't know. It feels like August, and I'm tired of dealing with the heat, and I'm tired of digging ditches, and I'm tired of the backbeating sun, and it might only be the heat wave in the middle of March.
Right.
You don't know. And but that's the exciting part. That's the hard part. Some people will call it, the pastor the other day called it the hallway. You're just walking down the hallway and you're waiting for God to open the door. You're right. Like, you're just keeping doing what God's called you to sow the seed, to water, to prune, to do all the things necessary, so that way when the rains come and the harvest is there, you're ready for it. And it can be the difficult season, but it's also the necessary season. And so that's what I say to these businesses that I want to partner with too, of like, you got to be in it for the long haul. Like, it's not just a 3-month in. And when we get advertisers, like, some of them, that's what they think, like, well, I'm going to get so many businesses, I'm going to get so many sales in 3 months from this. You're not. Like, we've got other products that can do that for you. They're going to cost more money, because that's what it is, right? To get more of a harvest, it's going to cost you more, right? It's the same thing with what God does. You want more harvest, you're going to have to sow more seed. You're gonna have to work harder. Like, the field's only gotten bigger. So what are you willing to invest in it? And this is the same thing with the billboards that I see too, is like, there's so much relation to the gospel with that too. Like, you want to grow your business? What are you willing to invest in it? What is it? What are you willing to allow it to cost you? And how long are you willing to wait? Like, how long are you willing to be in it for? Or are you just going to give up because it's not producing you the results right now? And so, just as a business owner, as someone that is also going in ministry. It's all the same thing. It all is relatable. There was a question somewhere in there, and I.
Yeah, he's just spinning the questions to it. Okay. But I love that as you're speaking, no matter as a businessman, as a father to provide, as a husband, I, I enjoy hearing that the word relationship just keeps coming back in my mind. You care about the relationship. This is not about giving and taking. This is about how can we build together from here. Because we love people who think like that because that's how we think as well. We want to help just as much as we need the help as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to think, which goes into the next question. If you guys have not noticed, as he's speaking, he is an outreach director from his church. And so all the things you said, you might have already answered it in this question as I was thinking, but I want to make sure that it is the answer. Is what are you seeing in the community that people need the most, and what impact are you hoping to come out of that?
That's one of those questions that I'm not sure that I've dove diving dove like I think it's dove, right? Um or I don't know if I've dived deep enough into that um ministry yet to really see and to know. But what I feel is like people want a sense of unity, like people want a sense of hope, people want a sense of community. I think when we look back to what COVID did and how it broke us apart and how we're still especially through social media, how we're still disconnected and disregarded. And people would say because we don't look the same, we shouldn't be doing this together, and whatever that is. But that's just the opposite. Is like I think people have a longing for community and belonging and impact and seeing like we want to come together. It's not the color of our skin. It's not the socioeconomic status of us. It's that we have a purpose and we want good for our country. We want good for our communities. We want good for our families. And there's a hope to that. And obviously, to me, in the ministry that I'm trying to direct, is what I see is food is a necessity. Like food, there's a surplus of food, yet there's people that are going hungry and that are food insecure. In what sense does that make? And that just means that we're not doing enough somewhere along the way to bridge that gap. And there's again that relationship, that need for relationship. Well, can we bridge that relationship through food too? We know breaking bread is one of the most powerful things that we can do, right? And um, it's why if you've come over to our house for Connect Group, what do you know? Like I love to feed people. Wow, the stories. It's when people break down their barriers. There's something about just eating a good bite of food that just warms the soul up too. And so just trying to meet all those together, and what that looks like. But um, so the need, I think a need, part of the need is relationship, is community, and then the other part is like it is food. Like I'm sure there's way more than that too. Just but working at the school, like knowing kids that are food insecure, that they go home for the weekend, talking with the food pantry owner and what they do, working with one of the school districts that they're close to, is they're giving food to the counselors. They're giving bags to the counselors to send home with food insecure kids to be able to make sure that they're fed over the weekend. Like we have so much of that. We have an obesity problem because we have a lack of nutritional education as well. And me and Eva have been on a nutrition journey ourselves, and that's kind of where the food truck ministry plays a role too. But it's also got to be reshaped and refined, because I don't know that that's what God's calling us to right now. Um, and I just don't. I think it's he's shaping it. That's all I can say, right? Like, but we've been on a nutrition journey ourselves, and you look at California, and California is suing some of these food manufacturers because they've put so much sugar, they've put all these processed ingredients, that they're making it addictive for kids. And what is it doing? Well, it doesn't allow us to operate in the fullness that God's created us to. It's just not. And so there's an impetus behind, how can we get this good whole food to be able to get people to operate in the fullness of what God's created them to be. And when you go back to Genesis, and it's what was his initial design? Well, I mean, it was the food and the seed bearing plants, like even the animals, that's what they were eating. And then after the fall and after the flood, it was okay, he allowed the meat to happen. But we have contaminated it so much that we can't operate in the fullness. Our mind's not fully functioning. We can't operate. Like, if you've ever, we've done the Daniel fast and we've done the whole clean eating, and it's hard to stay in those patterns, but you know how much better you feel. You know how much more energy you have. You know how much more clarity you're feeling. And there's a need for that as well. Like, we're just existing instead of existing in dominion, existing in fullness, and existing in this power and authority that God's created us to be. And so there's a need for that, is what I see too. And that's more, again, part of the food truck ministry that we wanted to design was like, can we get people, young kids, to give them a good first meal to be able to operate more in that realm. But then there's also the understanding of that through the conversations I've had, one meal is not going to change that. They're going to go home and they're going to continue to eat these things. So if we're doing a food truck and it's a put off because the food that we're serving isn't what they want to eat, it's not what they get at home, it doesn't sound appealing to them, are we bringing them in to be able to share the gospel? Are we bringing them in to build the relationships? If they're just like, eggs, fruit smoothies with spinach and mushroom powder, like, that sounds disgusting. Like, I'm not. And then we don't get a chance to build that relationship. And then I had another guy tell me, he told me the story of someone they do kind of a food truck or like a food pantry, like mobile food pantry type thing. And one of the ladies that came up to him, they didn't have any food left. All they had was dog food. And the lady was debating on whether or not she took dog food home. And the just the seeing that the lack of dignity that she had to express, and like searching for that decision, like, do I really take the dog food to eat because I can't have anything else? And it's like, we have so much excess food, we have so much more healthy food that just goes to waste. Like, when I had that food pantry, like, how much fresh produce did I literally just have to throw away, that there's so many people seeking access to that? But yeah, you have Sam's, and I mean, Sam's, like, you donated the food. Like, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, Sam's, but there's so much extra food that's going to waste that people could literally be utilizing, but yet they can't afford it because good whole food is out of the reach of some people. And it's like, why? How? And so trying to solve that problem, I'm probably not going to do it in my lifetime, maybe. I mean, unless God's doing something greater in me than I can see. But that's where the community partner comes in. It's like, how do we find a way to get more good, whole, less processed food to people so that they can operate in the fullness that God's created them to be, and give them the access to those things. And I see it as I've gotten into it more. I see people that are trying to do where my vision's headed, like that they're taking some of this donated food and they are creating chef inspired meals through donated food. That's good whole food that's just going to go to waste. And to me, that's great. That's awesome. Some of it's not biblically centered, which is fine, because again, like, it doesn't have to be for you to operate that way. And again, it goes back to the community, but then how can we bring in the gospel to it too? To see, like, this is how God created you to live. It points you back to the gospel of this is how God made us to begin with. Right. This is why you feel better. Yeah. This is why you're healthier. It's because this is how it was preordained. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I'm rambling.
No, you're fine. I think about the saying, "It takes a village," and the other part to that saying is, for you to have a village, you need to be a villager. And I see that in everything that you're doing, and I hear, your vision and your dream about this food truck and bringing, making healthy food and things like that accessible to everybody. And I hear the intention that goes into it, and I also see how everything else you've done in your life is mixed into this one idea, that your experience with as a trainer and with the body and health, and even in counseling, all of those things come together and they're being used in this one lane here. And so you wanting to bring that to people, but then also understanding the challenge that you're up against, because at the end of the day, what you are doing is introducing a different mindset, right? And trying to change that, and understanding that just one meal won't make the impact. But what I love is that it does open the door. And so being there in the community, I know for us, being from a different culture, for us, when our culture is very close, and so when somebody comes from the outside, that's exactly what you are, is an outsider. But as soon as, if we're roasting a pig, as soon as you get in line and you take the skin and you're eating it next to me, or you're immediately family. And that's sometimes that's what it takes for people on the outside to adopt a new idea, or for their walls to come down so that they can take in what it is that you really are presenting. And I see that you're doing that with building those relationships that you said were a challenge in the beginning, but you're understanding now. I'm building these relationships to last forever. I can't get away from it. And so you're being intentional with that. And I see that playing a part to here, carving the way you're laying the foundation for what it is that you're building and wanting to do, the impact that you're wanting to make in the community. And so I love that. And if anybody who's listening, who has experience, who has connections or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Brandon, because this is definitely something that he's voicing here and making a commitment to do. And so, like we said, it takes a village, and you got this, we're right here, and we're doing this with you, and we invite everybody to take part of that journey. Like you said, for the recent event we had at church, the Sprout into Spring, you got so many people to support that event. And like you said, they don't even live in HEB. They may not even see reciprocal benefits of them donating to this. But whenever you know your purpose and your vision, people doing that not because of what they were going to get back, but because of who they are. Yeah. And I see that in you, in who you are becoming, and the person that you are. This outreach coordinator title, you were doing these things before the title came, because that's who you already are. And so when the title came, it's not something for you to work towards. That's who you already are. That's why you were given that title. And it shows in everything that, not that you've already done, but even what you're trying to do now. So I'm really excited to be part of your village. And I would like to see that happen. I have personally had his smoothies. I have personally had his healthy food. And let me tell you, as a girl who likes unhealthy food, it's so good. It's so good. So thank you for not just introducing them to healthier alternatives, but for making it delicious too, because that's number one.
Well, I love to cook. I do like to cook. But again, there's nothing, and I don't want to take credit. That's probably Eva's smoothie recipe that we just put together for the masses. But again, like, there's something that just happens when you can take a good bite of food, and especially when you serve it, to see people and to have that appreciation for that's and there's something that it does, whether it's to you or whether it's to the person that's partaking. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Brandon. All right, now we're in the section about wisdom and advice, Brandon, and we know that you've been through a lot. So I wanted to ask you, Brandon, what would you say to someone who feels stuck or unsure about their future?
I'm probably going to take my wife's advice, and say, just do the next right thing. And for me, it's just, you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just staying consistent. God will open the door eventually. Like, whether it means you're knocking on doors and they're just not opening. You know, I've seen it with the businesses I've tried to find advertisers as I've tried to find host businesses, is that there's a lot of no's. There's a lot of no's before there's yeses.
Yes.
But if I want the businesses to be successful, like, I'm going to have to continue to hear no's. I'm going to have to continue to, but if I give up, I'm never going to get to that yes.
Yes.
Right. And that's the hard part, though. And you just got to understand, like, if God's in it, he's going to bring the yeses, and he's going to bring them in his time, and he's going to try to, and he's going to do it to make sure that it's in alignment with his vision for it too. I recently got a text message from somebody that's kind of does the same thing I do. And, there's a doctor in South Lake, like, hey, I got a prospect. I didn't do anything for that. Like, but I've just been trying to be consistent with my business, and God opened up another door. And I don't know what that door has a potential to open, right? But just being consistent, getting up every day and doing those things. Your dad will hate me for saying this, but it's just continuing to do and operate in the spiritual disciplines, reading your Bible, studying, meditating, being in prayer, being in community and in fellowship, and celebrating the little wins. It's not that we're doing anything by doing it, but we are creating fertile soil within ourselves. We're preparing for the battle, right? If we're not doing these things until the battle comes, we're already too late, right? Like, you got to put on the armor of God before the battle begins. Otherwise, right, the fiery darts are gonna get you before you can put on the breastplate of righteousness, before you can put on the helmet of salvation, right? And we see it the same thing with Jesus, before he went out and faced the devil. The Holy Spirit led him to what? To fast and to pray for 40 days before he had one of the probably toughest battles of his life. Where'd he go before he went to the cross? He went to the garden to pray, right? And he did it for hours on end. He was prepared for the battle that he was about to fight. And that's the same, like, that's part of where I'm at. Like, I think God's prepared me for this, because when we call this to the youth ministry, me and Eva talk about this, or being the pastor, and I don't know that I was called to the youth ministry. He placed us there, but he placed us there to shape us for what was next. And he shaped us there for me personally, I didn't have a big background when he called me. I didn't go to seminary. I don't have a background in the church. Like, I had only been a part of the church for about 3 years, and I was doing some basic things, but me and Eva got married, and she has kind of a more in-depth spiritualness to her, that she was brought up in the church, and she watched her parents serve, and things of that nature. But it taught me how to study more regularly. It taught me to pray more fervently. It taught me to, as we became hosting the Connect groups, it taught me to study a little more. And so it started to necessitate these spiritual disciplines and putting them into practice, so that way that what's the battle that I'm facing now, I'm prepared for it. So what he started back in 2015 when he called us was for this moment now of saying, like, I'm not going to give up, or because I can pray through this, that even though it's hard, I can see what's on the other side of it. I have the hope that he's already established in us. And so part of that wisdom and advice is to get stuck, is to keep doing the things that you need to be doing. Keep praying, keep studying the word, keep being in fellowship, keep being in community, right? We hear about it all the time. People who get hurt or are in difficulties, they disconnect. They blame God instead of going to God, instead of staying connected to the church. They disconnect. And, that's all I can say is don't do that. If I got a piece of wisdom, it's don't do that. Like, just being here with you girls and hearing your continual reinforcement that I'm doing the right thing, that it's encouraging to me that I'm not alone in it, that I still do have, is as much as when I'm sitting in the house by myself and I'm discouraged and I'm downtrodden and I'm defeated, that there are still people that see that the vision and the hope of what I'm doing is important. So gives me the okay, there it's something bigger than me. Get off your lazy butt and go do the work that you've been called to do. Go make a phone call. Go send an email. Go knock on a door. Like, quit feeling sorry for yourself. Like, it's not gonna end here. There's more. And so for whoever's going through it too, like, it's not ending here, like, unless you choose for it to. And if you're choosing for it to, then that's on you. Like, God's called you for a bigger purpose, and God's calling you to more. Are you willing to step out in that? It's hard.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Brandon. Like we said, we know Brandon, and Brandon can be very hard on himself, but yes, thank you for sharing that there's more, and to step into that. So thank you, Brandon. How do you move forward when you don't have everything figured out?
It's just that next step, and just knowing that God has the plan. He'll start to sort things out. Like I said, there's sometimes we're making the wrong decision with the right intention. Well, what is God going to do with that? give you a little nudge. Like
Yeah.
he'll give you a little nudge. Like, hey, come on now, really? Like, you really thought that's what I was saying?
Right.
I mean, I thought so. Like, right? Like, I mean, but it's hard. Like, it's hard, and that's what I'm in now. Like, I have to be careful of what I say, because I don't want to take it to sound prideful, and I don't want to over say what I'm saying. But God's blessed us in this last season with some financial gain, and that's the hard part. Is like, what do I do with this financial? Like, do I throw it all into the business? Do I throw it all into the ministry? I felt like I've tried to steward it well up to this point and doing it step by step, but that seems to not be doing what it needs to. But is that also part of it too? If like it doesn't look like it is, but it is, and so that's the hard part right now. Is I'm trying to live that out right now. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if I take out everything from my retirement funds and just go, all right, well, I'm going to pour it all into the business. I'm going to start paying somebody full time to go do the things that I'm not good at. Like, is that what God's calling me to? Or the $100,000 that I'm asking for a food truck? Do I just be like, okay, God, like, take it all out and go buy a food truck?
It's for the food truck.
It is it, but at the same time too. But then, how do I care for my family? Like, how do I like? There's wisdom and there's instruction that we're to take care of our family too, and and so where is that line? Again, it's not necessarily clear and obvious right now. Is he going to make it clear and obvious? I don't know, or is he just saying, make a decision, and then I'll kick you in the rear to tell you like that it wasn't the right one. But at the same time too, there's that stirring within me that I want to do the right thing for the right reason. I don't want to do the wrong thing for the right reason, and I don't want to do the wrong thing for the wrong reason, and I don't want to do the right thing for the wrong reason. So how does that wrestling look like? And that's I don't. So I don't. If you got that answer, tell me, because I sure don't have it figured out. I'm just trying to listen. I'm not good at sitting still, like Edner say. Like,
he's ready to be on the go already. But thank you, Brandon, for sharing that and just taking us through that, and answering honestly that you don't know, because right now you're kind of waiting to see, God, what's my next move? Because I'm used to being on the go, so tell me where to go right now, and I'll go. So, but like you said, Brandon, taking that next step, putting one foot in front of the other, so when that season does come, and that yes does come, that you are ready. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for what God's going to do, Brandon. Our next question, Brandon, is what habits or mindset shifts have helped you during this transition?
The mindset shifts. It's probably got to be the ability to think positively. I'm not, and that's something that God's been shaping over me for a long time. And that's, you can thank Eva for that, right? Like, the power of your words, but also just the power of having that positive mindset. I used to call myself a realist, and I've kind of moved away from that, because it's not just what we can see. It's what is God doing behind the things that we can't see. And if he's called me here, he's got a purpose for it. And if he's building it, then how am I going to be like, well, that can't happen? Just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's God raised Christ from the dead on the third day. Amen. That we get to celebrate that in a couple of days, right? And if he can do that, what more can he do that I can't see? But that's hard, and just who I used to be and who I trying not to be anymore is like, I'm the realist. And that was something that me and Eva have always struggled with. She's the person of positivity. She's that always positive. I'm like, dude, you're killing me. Like, no, they can't. Like, that's just not who they are. Can you stop? Okay, I know God can do great things, baby. But like, not in them right now. Like, but having to reshape that, and just the habits, just getting up every morning and just staying to it. Even sometimes, even if it is just a checkbox of reading your Bible, like sometimes that's the season that it has to be. Even when you don't think, because then God will stir in you. God will. You're just checking a box. There's more in there for you. Can you flip that switch for me? And so again, it goes back to just, it's funny because we're teaching the 12 spiritual disciplines in our Connect group, and it's just staying in foundation with those, knowing what those are, and knowing that there's a purpose behind them. It's not because we can do anything, but it's, again, it's just providing that fertile soil so God doesn't have to punch me in the face like he did, like he did several years ago or whatever, to say, no, you're not on the right track. Like, and I don't want to be there again.
Right.
Like, as much as leaving the school was a kick in the pants for me, like, it was an answered prayer. It wasn't God saying you're in the wrong place. He is saying, no, I have better for you, but you weren't going to do it on your own. I'm going to have to do it for you. And you were asking for this. You were asking for an answer, and I'm giving it to you. But you're not going to like how I'm going to do it. But then too, like, how much more do I have to trust him now, and saying, like, okay, like, I know this was you.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I mean, that's definitely something that, we continue to talk to our little champs about, and believing, we have our little champ chat and they're saying, I'm a leader, I'm a winner, I'm a superhero, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm brave, I'm kind. All these things, just teaching them, because the words have the
Yes,
power to
Eva.
speak life or death. And we always want to speak life to our little champs
Yes.
and to everyone around, every person that we run into, to be that impact, to plant that seed, however way, by being intentional and by having that positive mindset. So I love that for you, Brandon. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank my wife. Come on.
Yes, thank you, Eva. All right, Brandon. So what does success mean to you today compared to before?
Golly, so many good questions. I mean, I think before, success was state championships. Successes were monetary, financial, earthly, worldly things. And success now is just seeing people's lives being changed, having impact. You know, and that's hard. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I would like success to be a business that's making money. um, but just building that community. I think, so I don't know. Like, I mean, I know what success used to be to me. I don't know if I formulated what success looks like for me in the here and now. I mean, I think success is just being able. I think I'm hoping that it's establishing something that will exist, will continue past me, to leave that impact, because then I know it was of God. I know that if it ends with me, it probably wasn't of God. And you guys have the Kasitati Foundation, you guys have the Lions Club. These are things that I'm hoping to will exist long after you guys are gone too. And that's how we can know it's of God, is when it continues to be fruitful, and when it continues to multiply. And that's what I'm hoping success is in our season now, is that this isn't just of me. This isn't gonna just be something that is for our church. It's not going to be just something for a season. It's going to be something that, long after we're gone, whether it's our children that are impacted board, or our children that are running it, or it's that there's a new kingdom impact that's being administering the whatever we're doing. That's what success looks like to me.
Leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon, for sharing
Which
that.
is hard, like,
Yes.
because you've also kind of, like, the pride aspect of it too. Like,
Yes.
am I doing it because it's my name that's associated with it, or it's because of the imp? And so, again, stripping away at the core of what is the intention behind it, and why am I doing it, and making sure it's God focused and not person centered focus, which can be difficult. Like, I want to make an impact. I do. Like, I want people to look at me and be like, but I also have to say at the same time too, I want you to see the God inside of me. Like, I want you to know that it's God that's done this. And that's where the story always has to come back to. And that's some part, like, you guys thank me for my story, and I appreciate that too. But it's who God's created me. It's who God's becoming inside of me. And that's what I just have to be aware of too, is like that I'm not the one taking the glory for it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Brandon. Just starting something and trying to create a lasting impact that would not only change lives, but last for generations, and thus creating a living legacy. So thank you for sharing that, Brandon. Do you believe you lost something, or were you being redirected? And who are you becoming in this season of your life?
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit. I mean, it was definitely a loss. I mean, you know, it's hard. Um, there's people that I worked with for a long time that still haven't reached out to me, and that hurts. People that I would consider my friends that I'm not sure they stuck up for me, um, and and there were people that went to bat for me, but because the season I'm not allowed to kind of maintain that relationship the way that it once was. To see, to have a basketball team go the distance that they win, and to be not be able to be a part of it the way that I was before and up to the point it hurt. And I mean, I can still feel it, like, like that's part of who I was. It's still part of who I am. But God's also saying, like, but I've created you for more than just that too, and I've created you for different. And there's lessons to be learned in that. I did build some good relationships there. I did make an impact there, and if I could do those things there, why can't I do them outside of it too? um, um, but it's what was the next question? Who am I becoming? More dependent upon God. Like, um, that's the season. Um, that's the difficulty. Is knowing that He might be bringing us to the very end of myself before He answers some of these prayers that we're looking at. And that's tough. I mean, there's times where I sit there and going, God, what do you want me to do? Throw myself on the floor and just cry out to you? And there's times where I'm like, yeah, He's saying that's exactly what I want from you. Um, um, is He going to make us go broke to see how much we're willing to trust Him? I mean, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
But He might be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He might be. So that's hard. Is just knowing that He's asking me to trust Him more. And it's hard because when you've come through seasons that have been difficult, you feel like you've already done it.
Yeah.
Oh. But you're still holding on to things.
Yes.
There's still more to be stripped away. There's still more of ourself to lose. There's more to be of the cross to be carried.
Yes.
Um, there's more of dying to ourselves and being more of who He's called us to be. And it's hard.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Brandon. Like you said, that it's really hard, especially when you sit there with yourself and, like you said, like, God, do I need to lay on the ground right now and just cry out to you because that's all I have left? Like, God, am I gonna be broke? Am I gonna be on the streets? Like, but at the same time, like, God knows us so much. He knows what it's going to take to really break down those walls, to really pull back those layers so that we can fully depend on Him. And you just talking about, when you said, like, I'm going through this season, like, I thought I already got out of this season. It just makes me think of a time in my life where I went through this season, and then the season came back around years later, same kind of situation. And I remember complaining to my sister, and I remember telling her, like, why am I going through this again? I've already gone through this before. Like, and I was so frustrated, and I was talking to my husband. I was like, God, why again? Like, I thought I already passed this test, God. Why are you giving me the same test again years later? And I remember my sister was like, it's because you haven't fully learned yet. You haven't fully became the person that God was taking you through that season for you to become, to soften your heart, to do these things or to just simply let go. So thank you so much for that, Brandon. That just reminded me of that too.
and it goes back to what if, like, I started the story a while back when me and Zach's mom split up. I mean, I lost everything. Like I literally in 3 weeks lost my job, my place to live, my car broke down. Eh, So I had nothing. And this is in August of 2011. But to know that in September of 2026, when I left my job, we now have two cars that are paid off, one that's almost there. Bought we've bought a house, we've got money saved up for retirement. God did all that in 15 years. Took me from nothing to all this. So I know we can do it again, but man, God, please, like, don't be like, I don't want it to be that, but I know that he can. And that goes back to Romans 5:3-5. Like, and that's the hard part of knowing that this struggle might be harder. The struggle might be longer. The struggle might be more enduring and time consuming and burdensome. Um, and just hoping and praying that it's not. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to I don't want to start from scratch again. Like, but obviously we know that if that's what he calls us to, that he can bring us out from it. So there's hope there. It's just
Yeah. Just got to put our one foot in front of the other, like you said, Brandon. Is there anything, Brandon, before we finish our episode and come to a close, is there anything that you like to share that we didn't ask or but you feel is important?
I don't know that I have anything to add. I think we've taken
I
a
think you
long
said it all.
winding. I tend to do that, right? Now we've taken a long winding road to get here. I mean, life is tough. I mean, that's what it is. Like, all of us, and that's again where I'm hoping our ministry can minister to others. Is like, even in the midst of the difficulty, like, there's somebody out there, there's something out there, there's somebody out there, there's a God out there that sees you, that loves you, that wants you to come to him. There's more out there than just what we see, what we feel, what we can hold on to. There's so much more to that. And so that's where the hope comes from. It's like, if you're hoping in this world, it's going to disappoint you every time. It's going to be heartbreaking. It's not going to give you what you want it to. But when you find the hope that is found in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, like, that's why I can sit here and tell you the story. And that's why, yeah, it might bring tears to my eyes, but I can sit here with a hopeful, steadfast expectation that even if he calls us to go broke, hey, I know there's going to be food. I know where it's to be found. I know that he's going to provide it. And I also know that because he's done it once, he's going to be faithful in his promise again. And if you haven't experienced that hope, if you haven't experienced that long suffering, you can't understand it. People will look at me like I'm stupid and being like, really? He's going to do it again? How do you know that? Because I know the God of possible, right? I know that that's who he's declared himself to be. And into the natural world, and to those that don't believe, it's hard to see that. And to those that believe can sit there and say they have that understanding. And so just, as we sit here on Good Friday, right, that it's awesome to be a part of that. Like, that Christ died on the cross for our sins, that he bore it for us, because knowing that I'm not worthy of any of this. I'm not worthy of his love, not in the natural world. Like knowing who I was, saying that I'm a sinner, that I belong to be, I deserve to be sitting in prison, like, for the things that I've done, the way that I've hurt people. But God sent his son to die on the cross for me and for my sins. He's loved me. He's given me more than I could ask for, more than I can imagine. A beautiful wife, a loving family. He's putting community around us to help us accomplish what we want to do. And then he showed himself to be true to his word by raising Christ from the dead on the third day. And as we go into the Easter weekend, like, that's why we have hope, because if he can do that, he can do anything that we ask him to do, and so much more.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Brandon, and just having the time to sit here with us and share your story and just everything that you've been through and who you are becoming today. We really appreciate you being here. Also, before we end our episode, I wanted to ask our co-host and host if you guys had anything else you'd like to share.
All these notes, all these notes. I'm like, wow.
Brandon, I have nothing to add to your story. Okay, but I can't help but sympathize with you. I have written a book, and this is not about me, but I want to say something. In the book, I talk about a lot of hardships I've gone through, and since that book has come out, I have been speaking to people who has been sharing and have mentioned things I've gone through. But I feel like what I sympathize with you with is that it's not about what I've gone through. Yes, the hardships, like we've been saying that word, it sucks. It sucked of what we went through. But I want them to see how God pursued us. And I kept seeing that as you're speaking. It's like every time you're speaking, but God and God took me here and God took me there. But and that's really the message that I wanted the book to have is that no matter what I've been through, no matter how many
Okay, everybody, we're back. Okay, thank you so much for hanging out with us in the middle of the disconnect there. But like I was saying to Brandon, that's the same thing that I see God doing is refining you and pushing you to operate in your best way. What I really love about God's character and just his creativity, how magnificent he is that he never in the Bible through his scripture, he never performed
the same miracle twice. And so you've seen God, you've been here before and you've been stripped, and now here you are again. And you know, whether he's splitting the Red Sea so that you can walk through, or it's every step that you take and he's pulling it back, he's going to do it. And what I love about that is that we get to experience, you know, what way is God going to move now? What way is he going to make this thing happen for me now? This, and so I am, like you said, the things that were taken away, and then today to be blessed, you know, tenfold from where you were the first time. And so I can't wait to see the results of this. You know, whenever you mentioned earlier about how your success to you, which I really love, was that you mentioned impact. Before you mentioned anything else, you mentioned impact, and I just want to share with our audience. Brandon is the first time we ever came together and we did a scholarship before the foundation, before anything. And we were just starting out, and Brandon was actually our very first supporter, and he supported one of the scholarships that we had for high school students, continue their education. And the kid who you sponsored is still in that lane today, is still
That's
pursuing
awesome.
that today. And that's just amazing because you already have impacted not just him, but you know, his family, generations, kids, grandkids. Who really knows the effect of that ripple that you began because you supported us so graciously and continues to do so with both of our nonprofits. But that's just something that has always been you, that has always been your story, whether you knew it or not. And I'm seeing you in the middle of this transformation that's going on right now, and I'm so sorry that it's painful, but I'm so encouraged by your confidence and your hope. And something that I love today is that you brought so much of the truth of God's word into what we've been sharing, because that is the real word that has power. And so thank you for sharing those scriptures with us to encourage us and our listeners. And also thank you for being so open with your story. We really enjoyed having you here. I love talking to you regardless, just even off of here. Brandon is a hoot. Brandon is such a good time. He really is. What you see is what you get. And so just thank you so much for your heart for the
Yeah, I'm a
community.
crying fool. I know.
No, trust me, we cry all the time.
we
So yeah, we must have brought those vibes.
Okay.
But I
Yes.
appreciate you having me and let me share my story. I mean, again, it's always I'm always hopeful that that story has impact on somebody else's. That again, you know, you're not alone in it.
Yeah.
You're not
Yes, and
alone in it.
in Brandon's words, it's not gonna end here. There's more. There's more. And I just want to end the episode with that. It's just, it's not gonna end here. There's more. More life. So thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. And thank you guys for watching us on another episode of What Anna Said podcast. Bye. Thank you for whoever called and
I know. I'm
disconnected. Right. Right. Ah, Brandon, thank you so much for just, yeah.